At 2:37 p.m., Caribbean Sea, 120 nautical miles north of Caracas. A massive U.S. carrier strike group cuts through calm turquoise water. At its center looms USS George Washington, a Nimitz-class nuclear supercarrier loaded with more than 70 aircraft, its flight deck alive like a floating city. Guarding it on all sides are the battle-hardened escorts, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers USS Ross and USS Donald Cook, and the Ticonderoga-class cruiser USS San Jacinto. Beneath the surface, the Virginia-class attack submarine USS Texas glides like a silent shadow. But this is no ceremonial show of force. Every sensor is powered up, every screen glowing. Overhead, an E-2D Hawkeye circles at 25,000 feet. Its AN/APY-9 radar, able to spot fighters 550 kilometers away, and sea-skimming cruise missiles at 300 kilometers. The cruiser's SPY-1 phased array sweeps the Caribbean air, while deep below, USS Texas strains to catch the faintest metallic echo. Could this defensive bubble truly be unbreakable? What if a coastal nation decided to challenge this superpower? What would happen next? How would the drama unfold when threats rise simultaneously from the sky and the depths? In Venezuela, tension coils like a spring. At La Orchila Air Base, Sukhoi Su-30 Mk2s rest under hardened shelters. Their twin AL-31F engines snarl to life, preparing for reconnaissance. On the northern coast, mobile batteries of KH-35 Uran anti-ship missiles are dispersed and camouflaged. Each missile, 620 kilometers, Mach 0.9, sea-skimming, radar-guided, carrying a 145 kilo fragmentation warhead. Cheap, fast, and lethal against ships. The Venezuelan command staff orders a probing maneuver. 3 Su-30s climb into the humid air, contrails trailing. They are equipped with R-77 medium-range missiles, capable of Mach 4 sprint at 80-kilometer engagement range. Their orders: test the U.S. air defense perimeter, gather radar signatures, and report. On the carrier, flight ops respond instantly. 2 FA-18E Super Hornets, Raven 1 and Raven 2, launch from catapults with afterburners thundering. Each carries AIM-120D AMRAAMs, 160-kilometer range, and AIM-9X Sidewinders. An EA-18G Growler, with its ALQ-218 system, joins them, ready to blind enemy radars with digital noise jamming and false targets. At 80-kilometer distance, the Su-30s activate N01WM bars radars. Lock achieved. They fire first. 2 R-77s streak upward at Mach 4, guided by active radar homing. The American cockpits scream missile warnings. Defensive measures are engaged. The Growler floods the spectrum with DRFM-based deception, creating phantom echoes. Raven 1 retaliates with AM-120Ds. At Mach 4, the AMRAAMs cut distance in seconds, their seekers switching to autonomous homing in terminal phase. 1 Su-30 deploys chaff, diving hard, but the AMRAAM adapts, tracking the Doppler shift. A flash, a Venezuelan fighter disintegrates midair, debris raining down. The surviving Su-30s disengage. They roll low, heading south, chased briefly by AMRAAMs. Venezuela has learned what it needed. The Americans respond instantly, their radar coverage overlapping, their electronic warfare brutal. The price was one fighter, but the data could prove valuable. Beneath the sea, Venezuela tries another gambit. A German-built Type 209 submarine, diesel-electric, creeps silently toward the American formation. On battery power, it glides at 3 knots, making almost no noise. The sonar officer whispers, "Contact, large, bearing 0Z112, range 28 kilometers." The captain nods, orders tubes 1 and 2 flooded. 2 heavyweight SST-4 torpedoes eject into the sea. On USS Ross, sonar arrays detect the incoming wake. "Torpedo in the water!" Claxons wail. The ship deploys its AN/SLQ-25 Nixie decoys, towed emitters broadcasting fake propeller signatures. The torpedoes chase the noise, swerving off course. One detonates harmlessly, the other exhausts its battery. The counterattack begins. Aboard USS Roosevelt, the flight deck crew clears a path for the MH-60R Seahawk. Its twin rotors thunder against the night, the helicopter rising into the humid Caribbean air. Painted gray, bristling with sensors, the Seahawk banks sharply west. Its mission: hunt the submarine still lurking near the task force, a predator in the deep. Beneath the Seahawk, the ocean stretches black and endless. The crew lowers its Hellris dipping sonar, a cylindrical transducer that plunges into the water like a metallic pendulum. A low-frequency pulse resonates outward. Seconds later, an echo returns, distorted yet unmistakable. The sonar operator leans forward, headphones pressed tight. Contact, bearing 215. Depth 400 meters. Type 209 confirmed. Data bursts across secure channels. The helicopter transmits coordinates directly to the destroyer's combat system. In response, the Seahawk banks into a launch run. The Mk-54 torpedo drops into the sea with a violent splash, its propeller snapping to life. Designed for both shallow and deep water, the Mk-54 blends the guidance brains of the older Mk-48 with lightweight agility. The torpedo dives, sensors alive. Its sonar operates in active and passive modes, listening for cavitation noises, then pinging short bursts to home in. It adjusts fins automatically, narrowing the search pattern. The Venezuelan submarine hears the threat too late. Inside the pressure hull, claxons blare. The captain shouts for an emergency ballast blow, air flooding tanks to drive the vessel upward. But physics wins. The torpedo seeker locks on, closing rapidly. At 400 meters depth, the Mk-54 accelerates, striking with brutal precision. A thunderous crack erupts underwater, followed by implosion. The Type 209 folds inward, steel crumpling like paper, compartments collapsing in milliseconds. The sea churns with bubbles, a graveyard of shattered hull plates drifting downward. The strike group exhales in collective relief. On the carrier bridge, Admiral Patterson removes his headset, his gaze fixed on the plotting table. The submarine threat, elusive, silent, has been neutralized. He leans over the map, voice steady, yet cold. Time to send a message. His staff officers nod. Across the fleet, coded orders transmit simultaneously. Metal grates echo across the decks of destroyers and cruisers. Vertical launch system, VLS hatches spring open like mechanical jaws. Beneath each hatch rests a Tomahawk cruise missile, coiled energy ready to unleash. One by one, ignition commands flow. Moments later, the sea ignites with streaks of orange flame as dozens of Tomahawks leap skyward in vertical arcs before pitching horizontal toward Venezuela. Each missile is a machine of quiet terror. With a range of 2,500 kilometers, they can strike targets beyond the horizon without warning. Terrain-following navigation lets them skim valleys at treetop level, radar altimeters hugging the Earth. Guidance is a fusion of GPS, inertial navigation, and Tercom terrain contour matching. Their payload, a 450-kilogram unitary warhead, optimized to obliterate hardened structures. The Venezuelan defense network awakens. Operators at S-300 VM batteries stare at glowing screens. Tracks appear, tiny, low-altitude contacts slipping past coastal radar nets. Sirens wail, commanders bark orders. Moments later, Titanic 9M82 interceptors ignite, rockets screaming from launch rails at nearly Mach 7. Their plumes tear the night sky, chasing the intruding Tomahawks. For a brief moment, success. Several Tomahawks vanish in midair, shredded by proximity-fused airburst detonations at 25 kilometers altitude. Radar operators cheer as fragments rain into the sea. But the celebration is short-lived. The rest of the swarm flies low, hugging ridgelines, weaving through valleys at barely 30 meters above ground. The S-300 VM, designed for high-altitude aircraft, struggles to detect them in cluttered terrain. Venezuelan commanders scramble to reposition mobile radars, but U.S. electronic warfare blinds their sensors. EA-18G growlers blanket frequencies with noise, forcing the defenders into chaos. Operators switch radars on and off in desperation, but each emission risks detection and destruction. The Tomahawks continue forward, undeterred. Impacts ripple across Venezuela's northern coast like rolling thunder. A KH-35 coastal missile battery is struck first. The explosion triggers secondary blasts as ready-to-fire missiles cook off, streaking randomly into the night before detonating. Fireballs light the shoreline, silhouetting fleeing crews. Further west, radar stations buckle. A Tomahawk slams into a massed array, collapsing the steel structure in a shower of sparks. Operators barely escape as consoles erupt in flames. Without these radars, the air defense network begins to collapse, blind to incoming strikes. At Puerto Cabello, the largest naval base, fire rains from the sky. Tomahawks pierce fuel storage tanks, releasing fountains of flaming oil. Columns of black smoke twist into the dawn, visible for kilometers. Civil defense crews scramble with hoses, but the inferno is beyond control. Ammunition bunkers crackle with secondary detonations, sending shockwaves across the harbor. Yet Venezuela strikes back. Surviving KH-35 units unleash a salvo. 12 missiles lift, then dive to sea-skimming altitude, approaching at Mach 0.9, just above the waves. Their radar altimeters hold them steady at 10 meters. At that range, the horizon hides them until the last minute. Aegis springs to life. On USS San Jacinto, SPY-1D radar tracks the swarm. 12 inbound, bearing 210, range 36 kilometers. SM-2 interceptors streak upward, semi-active homing guiding them to their marks. ESSM missiles fan outward, forming a dense barrier. 11 missiles are destroyed, detonating in mid-air, fragments hissing into the sea, but one slips through. At 940 km/h, it smashes into the aft superstructure of USS Ross. A massive fireball blooms, compartments flood, yet the ship survives, damage control crews battling the blaze. The destroyer is wounded, not sunk. The Americans respond ruthlessly. 2 F-35Cs launch, stealth shapes hugging the waves. Their AN/APG-81 AESA radars paint targets with surgical precision. At 40 kilometers, they release JDAM ERs. Guided by GPS, the bombs strike Mariscal Sucre, a Venezuelan frigate. Explosions ripple along its hull. Within minutes, the ship rolls, smoke billowing, and sinks beneath the waves. Caracas escalates. 8 MiG-29s and Su-30s scramble, each armed with KH-31A supersonic anti-ship missiles. These weapons, Mach 3 sea-skimming, 110-kilometer range, are designed specifically to crack Aegis shields. Their objective, the carrier itself. But the Hawkeye has them painted long before launch. 2 combat air patrols, Super Hornets armed with AMRAAMs, move to intercept. At 70 kilometers, they fire. AMRAAMs streak forward, destroying 2 MiG-29s before they can release. 6 KH-31As are fired. They scream low at 3 times the speed of sound, their ramjets howling. The fleet braces. ESSMs intercept 4, detonating in midair. Failing CIWS guns chatter, spewing tungsten at 4,500 rounds per minute, shredding a 5th missile. The last missile slams short, warhead failing to arm. The carrier is untouched. Below, USS Texas launches more Tomahawks from underwater tubes. Their targets, Venezuelan air bases. At Maritime, hangars collapse, runways crater. At Barcelona, ammunition depots ignite in violent blossoms. Fighter jets are trapped on the ground, destroyed in neat rows. Venezuela reels. Communications falter. Command bunkers struggle to coordinate, but many radars are offline. Cables severed, satellites jammed. Orders are delayed, confused, misinterpreted. On the American carrier, the deck is a hive. Deck crews in colored jerseys guide aircraft in tight choreography. Fuel hoses connect, weapons loaders bolt JDAMs and AMRAAMs. Every 20 minutes, more jets thunder into the sky. By dawn, over 70 sorties have flown, systematically dismantling Venezuela's military infrastructure. The Venezuelan Navy is shattered, 2 frigates destroyed, 1 crippled, a submarine sunk, missile batteries eradicated, dozens of aircraft lost. Meanwhile, American losses are light, 1 destroyer damaged, 2 Hornets downed. The strategic balance is clear, but the human cost grows. Civilians in coastal cities flee inland. Black smoke pillars mark burning fuel depots. International media broadcasts fiery images. Venezuelan frigates aflame. Tomahawk strikes shattering runways. Venezuelan fighters falling from the sky. For Washington, the battle is decisive proof. Layered U.S. defenses are unbreakable. For Caracas, it is a bitter humiliation. The KH-35s and KH-31s that should have crippled a carrier were intercepted, jammed, destroyed. Their vaunted Su-30s fell to AMRAAMs before ever firing effectively. At 09:15 the next morning, Admiral Patterson transmits a final message to Washington. The Caribbean is secure. U.S. naval supremacy is absolute. Task Force remains combat capable. Venezuelan forces neutralized. The sea, once contested, is now American water.